Hey, John, we get this question on occasion, so it's definitely worth asking. Does vSAN use SMART?
So vSAN itself does not directly use S.M.A.R.T. You can still look at S.M.A.R.T. Using there's a CLI tool. VROPs can also pull S.M.A.R.T. in some devices. But one thing, talking to engineers who've spent a lot of time around drives, S.M.A.R.T's kind of dumb. There's a lot of challenges with S.M.A.R.T. One is the lack of standardization for a number of the values, so they're often proprietary to specific drive vendors. Sometimes they have philosophical differences about whether a given counter should count up or count down from 100. If you're concerned about things like endurance, you can still definitely get that out of your out of bands, your iDRAC, your ILOs. They're going to track that. They'll generate alerts. They can throw those into the system log and push that out. So there's definitely ways to, or your VROPs or log insight content packs will catch that. But the reality is what we do is we wanted something a lot smarter than S.M.A.R.T. No pun intended here. And so we have degraded device handling. And actually, you'll see this in the log sometimes mentioned as dying device handling, a bit more morbid and less marketing friendly of a name. But what this is doing is this is actually monitoring different devices in the host. And it takes basically these spaced windows where it monitors the latency of a device. And rather than just take the device's word for it that it's healthy, it's going to go say, okay, I'm going to pull a couple of you for 5 minutes at a time. And what's the latency look like? Or is the device latency? And not latency all the way to the VMs to the network, but the actual what is the firmware latency coming off that device. And so if that gets really high, that can be indicative of a failure or a terminal state. Now, we are going to spread this out over multiple windows over multiple hours. And so if we just happen to hit it, it was having a bad day, it was doing garbage collection at that time, but it came back, then it's fine. But if we see multiple windows of, man, this drive just always is returning really high write latency, or, something's wrong here and it's not recovering, what we're going to do is we're going to issue a notice and tell vSAN, hey, let's stop using that drive. If there's any data on that drive, we're going to start rebuilding it. We're going to rebuild from the good copies that are on other drives if available. If not available, then we unfortunately may have to use that drive. So if there's been other failures and this device is throwing it, we're not going to shoot the last good copy of of that data. But if we have other copies we can rebuild from, we're going to do that. We're now going to basically mark this drive as failed and degraded. So it'll go from degraded. We'll treat it as failed, and we'll kick it out of the cluster. And so this way, this device that's, it's like a bad Monty Python skit. I'm not quite dead yet. Isn't going to slow down my cluster and cause intermittent issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that's a great way to put that in terms of, it sounds like that we're really focused on monitoring the actual behavior of those storage devices as opposed to relying on a protocol or method to report against the storage device, which may have been all over the place depending on the manufacturer. Because let's face it, it seems like S.M.A.R.T has never had a good reputation in the first place, right?
Yeah, there's been some papers done about how not great it is at predicting failure, and frankly, the latency system it's serving us a lot better. We may look at leveraging in the future, but we've tried to get a lot lower level to that. It's served us well.